Mr. Hoppy will need a pass from the office before you enter the room.
Mr. Chair, I owe an apology. I'm normally more prompt than this. Hello, everybody.
Just giving you a hard time.
I deserve it.
All right, you all here?
Hi. Welcome to the Lincoln Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Board. I'm Holly Lewis, the Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation, and we will have the agenda on the screen and move through the meeting.
All right. I will go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Lincoln Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Board for September 25th, 2025. I also want to recognize the Open Meetings Act that's posted in the back of the room. May we please do a roll call of members present?
Barb Beyer,
Here.
James Michael Bowers,
Here.
Rick Hoppy, designated representative for Lear and Gaylor Baird,
Here.
John Goodwin,
Present.
Bard,
Here.
Brody Weber,
Here.
Okay, we will move on to approval of minutes from February 27th, 2025. I would ask for a motion and a second approving the minutes from February 27th.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to accept the minutes.
Moved by Councilman Weber,
I second that.
seconded by School Member Byer. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing no discussion, I'll go ahead and close discussion and ask for a roll call vote to approve the minutes.
Weber,
Yes.
Bumgard,
Yes.
Goodwin,
Yes.
Hoppy,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beyer,
Yes.
We'll move on to public comments for items not listed on the agenda. The Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Board welcomes comments from fellow citizens. At this time, we are taking public comment on any topic not listed on the agenda. The opportunity to comment on agenda items will come at a later point in the meeting. Do we have anyone from the public here today? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is the 2025-2026 election of officers. Per the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Board of Rules of Governance, the Secretary of the Interlocal Board will be the Lincoln Parks and Rec Director or designee, and the Treasurer will be the City Finance Director. Parks and Recreation Director Maggie Stuckey-Ross has designated Angela Quinn as the Secretary of the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Board. Thank you, Angie. And Finance Director Dottenlinger will be the Treasurer. The rules of governance also provides that the chairperson and vice chairperson will be elected by the interlocal board. Are there any nominations for chairperson? Councilman Weber?
Thank you, Chair Bowers. I would like to nominate my brother in representing North Lincoln on the City Council, Councilman James Michael Bowers, to be the chair of this interlocal board.
Thanks so much. Any other nominations? Seeing none, I would ask for a second. Seconded by Annie. Any discussion? Seeing none, can we please do a roll call vote on making me chairperson?
Beyer,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Hoppy,
Yes.
Goodwin,
Yes.
Bumgard,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
We'll move on to nominations for vice chairperson.
I nominate Annie Mumgard of the Lincoln Board of Education for vice chair.
Any other nominations for vice chair? Seeing none, I would ask for a second for Barb's nomination of Annie.
I'd second that nomination.
Seconded by Brody. Any discussion?
Yes. Good choice.
Seeing no, any further discussion? Seeing none, can we please do a roll call vote to make Annie vice chair?
Weber,
Yes.
Bumgard,
Yes.
Goodwin,
Yes.
Hoppy,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Beyer,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, next up is the review of the annual report on mental health services. Just to reiterate, there are three primary areas funded with interlocal board dollars: proactive services, protective services, and preventative services. So with proactive services, it's things like CLCs. With protective services, the school resource officers and threat assessment officers, and preventative services, behavioral and mental health services. Today's presentation relates to the last category, behavioral and mental health services. I'd like to introduce LPS Director of Student Services, Ryan Zabawa, to introduce his team and present the annual report on mental health services for the 2024-2025 school year.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Ryan Zabava, Director of Student Services. We're going to jump right into this. We have Allison Hedrick, who is our mental health coordinator, and Andrea Phillips, who's our mental health coordinator, and Allison Hedrick, who is our safety social worker for the threat assessment team. So we're going to jump right into our presentation and data.
Hello, and thank you for allowing us to be here today. I will get started. Okay, so there's two parts of this presentation. We've separated it into description of how the behavioral health supports are structured on our threat assessment team and our threat assessment supports at Lincoln Public Schools, as well as then our school-based mental health services, which will be done by Andrea. So threat assessment team, as we conceptualized it, consists of several positions. Even though I'm talking about the mental health parts of it, I can't talk about that without an understanding of the larger context. And so our threat assessment team is a centralized team that's made up of these professionals, from a security coordinator, me as the safety social worker coordinator. We have an additional social worker on our team, and our law enforcement partner is Investigator Hill. And we also have a violence prevention psychotherapist, Liesl Hogan, and our director of security, Joe Wright. Joe Wright is a certified threat assessment manager with our association and provides that leadership to us. Just a bigger picture review of what threat assessment team does. Threat assessment is the prevention of targeted violence. So what we're talking about is this predatory planned violence that plagues many of our public spaces. And so threat assessment is a strategic, systematized way of addressing and preventing that violence from occurring. And so our primary function is to assess and manage violence risk associated with targeted violence. In the process of engaging in that, we also triage and support other forms of safety concerns that occur in our school buildings. And so when our team is performing our functions as a threat assessment team, we are assessing and engaging in violence prevention strategies within Lincoln Public Schools, as well as continuing to support the prevention of targeted violence, the predatory violence. So what that looks like when we are looking to support students and families is that we are looking to maintain not only the safety of our school, but also making sure that our students aren't engaging in violence outside of school. And so that involves a wraparound process that in the process of threat assessment involves identifying concern and gathering information, assessing that concern, and then management. And so assessment is multidisciplinary in the team that we talked about. Management of the concern is that connecting with that homeschool community to engage the helping systems around an individual of concern in order to prevent them from going down that pathway to become violent. And so what that looks like is connecting them with mental health resources, aligning their school supports in the building, and then connecting them with positive relationships. And oftentimes we structure our management of those concerns in the form of a safety plan. We engage community providers in helping students and organize the supports that are already in place for students as well. Our assessment process includes our law enforcement partner, like I said. That's a key element to engaging our mental health team as well. It's really seen as this co-responder response to behavioral health needs when there's identified safety concerns at play here. We engage in a lot of professional learning around the country in order to maintain best practice standards and ensure that we are continuing to be at the forefront of making sure that our practices are effective, but also aligned with research. So one of the questions that often people have is how does it look when somebody is wanting to engage our team into the supports? We're a centralized threat assessment team, which means that we're located at district office, but we partner with our buildings individually on cases as they are seen as the subject matter experts on their students and families, the school culture, and it's a really team aspect of our team going to work with that school-based team. Majority of our referrals come from school administrators, and that process looks like we're engaging a lot of triage before we intake into a full threat assessment process. So it's in that triage that we're able to support a large continuum of safety concerns to provide district level support for safety plan responses. And then we engage a full multidisciplinary threat assessment process for individuals who we identify behaviors of concern associated with violence. Another place that we are getting referrals is through our Safe to Say application that individuals at our buildings, that includes students, families, staff, and our community members, can access in order to report safety concerns. A cornerstone of maintaining an effective threat assessment process is in having multiple ways that people can engage in that reporting process. And Safe to Say allows us to have individuals report even anonymously if they see things that they need to report of concern. Those are filtered through our Director of Security, and then referrals to our team come as they are needed. We are also connected with Safe to Help as well as 988 in order to create systems to respond to any reported concerns about students, that we can employ threat assessment procedures if we need to, based on the information that becomes available. So I am a licensed clinical social worker, and the other social worker on our team is Christy Lang. We both work very similarly and in tandem in order to engage those helping processes to divert someone from engaging in that concerning behavior or that violence risk behavior. We do that through engaging in our community resources, our community partnerships, and then we also do that by helping talk to families about how we can work together as a team. And so really when we are looking to manage a concern, it's figuring out who in that student's life can we work with in order to help get them on the right track. It's all from the perspective of this is occurring in the developmental context, and we want to make sure that kids can get on the right track. And so that includes partnering with the family, school, and the community. We also provide a lot of professional learning across the district for various groups, including administrators, school resource officers, school social workers, and about violence prevention, and how to approach the work of violence prevention utilizing that helping philosophy in order to divert people from engaging in towards behaviors that could get them in the criminal justice system. The other person that provides the mental health supports on our team is the violence prevention psychotherapist. Previously to the last 2 years, this was a contracted service provider, which we changed. Actually, last year was our first year of completing a school year with having it be an LPS employee. And we made the shift in order to better align our therapeutic support provided to families with our multi-tiered systems of support in our buildings. This, again, just continues to decrease the barriers for families in accessing support because with it being provided not only at the school, it being an LPS employee, that therapeutic support can be provided in conjunction with a community-based therapist that might be in place for a student. In essence, increasing that level of care for an individual student without relying on the fact that there may be barriers in the community to accessing higher levels of care. She has a therapeutic dog, and his name is Yeti, and he often is a very helpful tool in engaging different situations and families, but also kids, and it's really been a delight to have that added to our team. And so one of the questions that often people also have related to threat assessment team is how many contacts do you have with students and families over time? And that varies depending upon the needs. So the type of contacts that we have when we are engaging in the threat assessment process and management includes various ways. And so that may be weekly therapy, us following up with the school. It might be us sitting at the building doing safety planning with their school team. It might be talking to therapists, and the frequency and the duration in which we do that depends on the individual situations. And that is my section for the threat assessment piece. The Andrea Phillips, will be talking about the community agency therapist collaboration.
Hello, I'm Andrea Phillips. I'm the mental health coordinator for Lincoln Public Schools. So I am a social worker by training. I also have a LMHP and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And I, in my role, get to support 51 fabulous social workers that we have in LPS that support all of our buildings. And then also support our agencies that do school-based therapy. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So you can see here, Family Service, Hope Spoke, and Blue Valley are the 3 agencies that are a part of this agreement. Did you get it to advance? Not working. Go over. Thank you. Sorry about that. Okay, so this slide is really, I see as a celebration, because as this agreement started years ago, this therapy that we were providing was the only therapy that we were providing. And over the years, LPS has added our own contribution to therapy, as well as applying for other grants. So when we're talking about the 25% of contracted school-based therapy, that's what we're talking about today with this agreement, but we just want to be more thorough in showing that that's just a small percentage of the contracted school-based therapy that we provide due to the leadership in LPS and our board being supportive of mental health. That's really grown over the years. So I think that's really important to notice, is just that today we're talking about one small portion, but it has grown a lot. So when we're looking at who would be the best candidate for school-based therapy, social workers connect students with therapy in the community all the time. That's a big part of their job. But we have these limited positions that meet with students in the schools, and so we really have to establish a criteria to make sure that we're getting those to the students that need it the most. One of the first things that we really look at is barriers to participation outside of school. So if they have income barriers, maybe they're not insured, they lack transportation, their parent works in the evenings and isn't able to get them to therapy, those are things that we're really starting with. Those are the kids that usually stand out first as students that we know need the support but have those barriers to accessing therapy in the community. We also look at trying lower level interventions. So have we maybe provided some trauma groups or interventions with our counselors and things like that before we level up to therapy. Most of these students are going to have some significant life stressors, probably some exposure to trauma that they have experienced that has led them to needing some mental health support. And the last thing is just their willingness to participate. I would say this is not a problem very often. Kids are usually very open to talking with someone, and families are usually very thankful to have this support at school, especially when they're facing the barriers that they're facing to accessing it otherwise. So when we look at school-based therapy and what that looks like, the therapists meet with students during their school day. So they partner with our social workers that are in the buildings. The social workers are responsible for finding them a confidential office that they can meet with students. They're responsible for helping them with passes and things to get their students. So we help with that coordination. And then the therapists meet with them throughout their school day. We try to work around their core classes so that they're not missing too much instruction. Social workers use data to manage the referrals. So like I mentioned, when we're looking at like lower level tiers of support, you can see we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 as part of MTSS. And when we're looking at students who have really kind of worked their way up in levels of support, our most ideal candidates would be the ones that had made it to tier 3 and had really tried a lot of other things that students, other students have been successful with, that they were needing more support. So the first agency that I want to talk about is Blue Valley, and they currently serve 20 schools and saw 210 students last year. They provide primarily short-term therapy called youth assistance, and that's otherwise known as YAP. And one thing that's unique about this is just that it's more short-term, solution-focused. So they're working to achieve as many goals as they can in a short period of time and then referring on if needed. One thing that we've found, different schools, some schools have loved this approach because it allows them to serve more students over the period of the school year. Other schools have found that their students have more long-term needs. And so Blue Valley has been flexible in shifting. If we have a therapist that's providing YAP, but they say, actually, our school probably could use traditional therapy more because these students just aren't able to get to an outside therapist still at the end of this. And so we have shifted some schools from YAP to traditional therapy with Blue Valley. So that's been really nice that they've been flexible in doing that. And this is a survey that's conducted every year. These are the results from earlier this year. And this just shows staff that were surveyed, their overall satisfaction with quality of services. The first one there is, would they refer to Blue Valley Behavioral Health in the future? Just looking at their satisfaction with the YAP program specifically, positive impact on students and value of services. So you can see that all of those percentages are in the upper 90s, which is great. The next agency that I want to talk about is Family Service, and you can see they are currently providing therapy at Arnold, Brownell, Calvert, Norwood Park, Randolph, and West Lincoln. And they were able to see 76 students, and you can see there their direct versus indirect hours, because in addition to providing therapy, they're also working with the families to help coordinate. And they had an 82% successful closure rate. So they track that on their own, and that is a great successful closure rate. One thing that I wanted to note with this, the 76 students, and you'll see it on one of the upcoming slides as well, that is a lower number, and that's why you can see that difference. Like YAP, for example, and the number of students they're able to serve versus Family Service, because Family Service may work with a student for the entire school year. So they don't have the capacity necessarily for a lot of students, but they're able to work with a student until they're able to meet their goals. And the third agency is Hope Spoke, and they provide therapy at Lux, Goodrich, Pershing, and Lakeview. They served 33 students last year, and they track their success using the DLA 20, and they had 63.6 of youth demonstrated same or improved daily living after they completed therapy. They also provide traditional therapy, so again, these students are often working with a therapist for the majority of a school year. And this is just a visualization of the number of students that are served over the years from when we started to where we are now. And we've seen fluctuations over the years with COVID, with a mental health crisis where we really just did not have the availability of therapists that we have now. Luckily, that has recovered on in our experience. All of our agencies are staffed with the therapists that we need for this year, so that's wonderful news. You can see, looking at last year to this year, we went from 385 to 366, and a lot of that, I would say, is those short-term kids moving more to long-term therapy. And so again, that limits the capacity of number of students that we're able to serve, but we're able to serve students until they're able to be discharged. The other thing that you can see here, there's an asterisk by the threat assessment psychotherapist. As Allison mentioned, we took that on as a LPS position, and Liesel's role is more than just therapy. She's a therapeutic support for students, and those are the students that we highlighted here, but she also does a lot more with students outside of that. And so the 15 is not entirely reflective of the number of students that she serves. So these are some quotes that we got from students and families around their work with the therapist through this endeavor. Again, you know, students that don't have resources to go to counseling outside of the school day is really a big part of why we do this. And so they really appreciate that, the convenience of having it on site. Everyone says they would love to have their therapist more days. We have a therapist in every building providing some school-based therapy this year, but they always want more. And unfortunately, there are more needs. And when there are those needs and we aren't able to serve them through school-based therapists, that's when social workers step in to refer them to community providers. Just connections with improved grades, attendance, relationships with parents, and just really appreciating the positive connection to the building. So that is all I have. Do you have any questions?
Buyer?
Yeah. First of all, I was wondering how this meshes into the larger LPS mental health services, because this is a report on just what comes through the Interlocal,
Right.
correct?
Right, that's correct. We appreciate the commitment from Lincoln LPS Board because of the amount of money that you put forward to help support mental health in our district. We had relied heavily on ESSER prior to 2023-24, so that there's about $1 million commitment by LPS to continue these services. But there are a lot more services being provided throughout the district for all of our schools. So all of our schools are receiving therapy services in LPS from this dollars.
Do you have any idea how many students we might be able to touch? And that's okay if you can't answer. Maybe just tell us another time.
Do you mean if we had additional funding, how many more students?
What we are
Total.
touching now. I mean, right now according to this report, it's 366 students out of 42,000. So I have a feeling we have more.
Yep, and so that represents about 25% of the therapy that we're providing. I can't tell you the exact number of students that we're serving. We can definitely get that to you. But I would say that would be about approximately 25% of the students that we're serving overall.
That helps with that picture then. So then we've seen in the newspaper, as well as we know the board, that we don't have the funding that we had hoped to get through a mental health grant through the feds. How does that impact this matrix?
That's primarily school counselors,
Okay.
that particular one. So there's 19 individuals that will be impacted by that. We've made a commitment through the end of the school year to make sure that those are covered, yes. And
That
we'll
helps.
reevaluate that as
Yeah.
well, yeah.
I think that the public would be interested in that. So then another thing about mental health, I've often seen that we have issues about bullies and bullying. And so how do we determine in threat assessment between a bully and a victim?
Great question. So when we engage the process, it's finding out what is happening for that person. And so right away, approaching the work in that way, you hopefully find out what is behind a behavior. If at first you see a kid who might be acting aggressively, what you find out is maybe something is happening to them. And so that investigation and gathering of information helps to provide that larger context. And so, as you know, individual behavior is very complex, and a lot goes into why do people do what they do. And that's really trying to, that assessment and gathering information is trying to figure out what is all happening for that person and how can we help them in those various areas. And so if that person is experiencing bullying, taking that very seriously helps to reduce the violence risk of a person who might be acting in response to an aggressive behavior from somebody else. And so the helping can look not just at what the person is, it's that person's environment. And how do we help everything around that person's environment to reduce the concern that we're presented with.
That was a really informed approach. I think that's excellent. If there's one thing that as a board member I've seen, particularly in recent years, is the need for more mental health services. And I'm really pleased with what we're doing with the interlocal agreement. My only concern is, and I'm sure it's your concern as well, is being able to find additional resources. So I just want to put out there to the public, to the city, our wonderful partners, how do we go and bring in more mental health services for our students? And then also, there's a lot of stress among our staff, because when we have our students in such high need, a lot of this falls on our staff. Thank you for a wonderful report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Weber?
Thank you, Chair Bowers. Thank you so much. As Board Member Byer said, it's a very informative report, and it's extremely helpful. I want to just go back to the students served through the interlocal and the numbers, right? So obviously, COVID led to a sharp uptick in the amount of students that were served through the interlocal. But then I noticed that every year other than the 23-24 school year, there was a decrease in the amount of students that were served. And, you know, in the presentation, there was the answer that the reason for the decrease from this year to the previous year to the years prior, from 385 to 366, was those students going from short-term to long-term care. I'm curious, right? It seems like 23-24 school year is the outlier, since that was the increase. So I was wondering, and I know we had this meeting last year, I'm trying to gauge what the pattern is. And so I was wondering if you could explain why that year is the outlier compared to all of the other years where we've seen that decrease in students served.
Sure. Let's go over a little bit. So the other piece of that, in addition to moving from short-term to long-term, is lack of providers.
Okay.
So I would say without lack of providers, we would see those numbers going up every year, because the need is going up in the community in the United States. Last year, some of our providers struggled to be fully staffed, so we didn't have all of our therapy positions filled. Last year was better than the year before. This year we started the year with just one that was vacant that is now filled. So I would say that's the other contributing factor, is vacancies within the therapy positions.
Vacancies, and then the transition from short-term to long-term care, that has been something we've been seeing for years. Is that accurate to say, or no?
I would say last year is really the first year that I recall that schools are reaching out to say, could we switch from YAP to traditional therapy?
Okay.
So I would say that's more of a new trend starting last year, that they're wanting to switch over sometimes.
And then when we look at this report again for next year, is that a trend that we should be intentional about looking into as board members of this interlocal, seeing if there continues to be this push to going from YAP to the traditional therapy?
I think so. And I think it's only a few schools that have wanted to switch. Many of the schools really see the benefit of YAP because they are able to serve more students. They are able to be solution focused and get some things in place that are helpful to the student in a shorter period of time. So I would say both are very beneficial and needed. And I think it just depends on the population of different schools from year to year. But all of our providers are really flexible. So if, we have a short-term provider that sees there's a significant need, they're not just going to discharge. I mean, that's unethical to just discharge somebody without referring them on or continuing. So they have been flexible with that.
Thank you. I appreciate the answers.
Board Member Goodwin?
Yes, thank you. And I apologize if you were going to repeat yourself, because I may have been I missed lunch, so I'm a little hungry. So, but I definitely want to say thank you for the work that you all have done already and that are continually to do. It's very important for mental health to be addressed, and you're taking the initiative to be able to do that. I have a couple of questions. One is, I see that certain schools are identified for this service. Why are these particular schools identified? And maybe I missed that, so if you can reiterate that back to me, that would be great. The other question that I have with that is, if there are agencies in the community, how can they address this with you all? So how can they be one of those agencies to help assist with mental health?
Do you want to talk to how it started, as far as picking the schools? That was before I was in this role.
So it actually was just the puzzle to put together all of the where are the current therapy resources and where are there not therapists at. And so that's how the conversation began, and deciding who's going to be served with the interlocal is filling in the gaps that were already existing. We're now to a point where there are no gaps, and all schools are having therapy. And so then the puzzle becomes, is this the right agency for this school based on the various things that occur with the different agencies. With Interlocal, there are not the financial barriers, but our other therapy providers, there's various rules associated with funding that allows them to get access to services or not. So it's kind of a larger puzzle to put together. Every year, Andrea does that work related to that, but where it started was just filling the gaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
And then as far as partnering with agencies in the community, again, I think that is a significant improvement as far as capacity. I think social workers would tell you that they are able to make referrals in the community quickly. Centerpoint, for example, has walk-in services, so we're able to send students there to be seen the same day or assessed for things like suicide same day. So some of those increased supports in the community have been very, very helpful, because we aren't able to serve all students through school, and there are a lot more students that have mental health needs. But I would say we have great relationships with all the providers in town, and as well as private practitioners. We have lots of groups that reach out. We also manage a list of about 75 to 100 outside therapists that go through our process to be approved to see students in school. So those therapists are also doing that just through the parents. We're getting the releases signed and all of that, and providing them a space to meet with students. But that's another, 75 therapists that are seeing students in school that just isn't paid for by us.
Thank you.
Board Member Mumgard.
Thank you very much. It's always very exciting to come and see the numbers of something that was, dreamed about, and then it slowly has a build. On that note, since we've been doing this for about 7 years now, and I have two kind of questions. What, of anything, can you say how it is adding the mental health and increasing it? Because we started off with Interlocal at 25%, and then we've added to it at LPS, impacting the sense of safety and security at our schools. I don't know if you can do metrics with that, or if that's anecdotal, but that was part of the purpose. Mm-hmm. So how have we impacted that? Or how does it impact it?
So I can speak to the evolution of how threat assessment team has evolved. When I first started, at the very beginning, we were a 4-person team and it's evolved to adding a social worker to our team as well to manage the capacity of the way we're responding to buildings. And I can't, quote another administrator right now, or or anything about like what the impact is to the building. But I think as we look at metrics associated with sense of safety and like the belongingness at the building, and the students report on their feelings of safety in the building on the annual surveys that they take in the buildings, and administrators are utilizing those metrics to look at their school culture and climate. And one of the training pieces that we do with buildings is, in the research, it indicates that positive school climate and culture is one of the primary functions of prevention of targeted violence. And so that actually ties back right into everything that LPS already believes in, which is creating a safe environment for all students. And part of that is, what does that culture at the building look like? And so it ties in actually very perfectly to the threat assessment for prevention work. So our job is then to translate the work you're already doing to help improve outcomes related to academics, mental health, and behavior, also is prevention of violence. And so we reinforce the same things that they're also doing at that tier 1 level as being tier 1 violence prevention strategies. And so I can't give you a quote or a number at this point, but I know that those things do prevent violence every day by other people other than our team in our buildings.
Yeah, I do know that when this was discussed 7 years ago, that prevention of violence can be done the manner in which we are doing it, which is dealing with the threat assessment, with dealing with behavior in students, or it can be done by putting in physical barriers. And our philosophy is like, there's no need for the physical barriers if this part can work. And I feel like after 7 years, we're really showing that it does work. And proud of that, and thank you so much for all the work behind that. On that note, I think it behooves us to be looking forward to the next budget and saying, are we budgeting the right amount? Or, of course, everybody would like more, but sometimes our budget hits it. We have enough budgeted, but like you said, we cannot find the people to fill the spaces. Perhaps again, like Barb said, maybe not now, but something to think about is that, do we have a budgeted in this interlocal a fair share of how we need to support this aspect of safety and security, and how we're doing this as a partnership?
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll go invite folks up for public comment if there's anyone for public comment. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, thank you so much for the report, and thank you so much for the good work that you're doing. I know firsthand that Lincoln Public Schools has some of the best social workers in the state. So good job, and you all have an excellent reputation in the community. Moving on, we'll move on to approval of the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Board 2025-2026 meeting schedule. In our meeting packet, it includes our interlocal board meeting schedule for the upcoming fiscal and school year. Meetings are proposed for the following dates and times. Thursday, November 6th at 6:30 here in City Council chambers, when the annual School Resource Officer report along with LPS school perception and disciplinary data will be reviewed. Thursday, February 26th, 2026 at 12:15 here in the City Council chambers, when we'll hear from Ms. Derby Bennett about CLCs and also discuss whether any changes to the current levels of services are recommended. And we will then kick off the 26-27 year with our first meeting on Thursday, September 24th, 2026 at LPS District Office. We'll elect officers and then hear the same report again from Ryan and his team regarding mental health services. Please note that while we generally try to hold the meetings to 1 hour or less, November's meeting always goes long, that the LPS and LPAD data teams have a great deal of information to share, so please plan accordingly. I would ask for a motion and a second to approve the proposed meeting schedule.
I'd make that motion.
Moved by Brody. Seconded by Barb.
Yeah.
All right. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, is there any public comment regarding this item? Okay. Seeing no public comment, no further discussion, can we please do a roll call vote to approve the meeting schedule?
Fire,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Hoppy,
Yes.
Goodwin,
Yes.
Lombard,
Yes.
Weber.
Yes.
All right. We'll move on to adjournment. I just want to again note that the next meeting is scheduled for November 6th at 6:30 here at the City Council chambers. The focus of that meeting will be to review the annual report for School Resource Officer Program, the review of LPS, school perception and data discipline. I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Annie,
Second.
seconded by Brody. Can we do a roll call vote for adjournment? Thanks.
Weber,
Yes.
Lombard,
Yes.
Goodwin,
Yes.
Hoppy,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Fire.
Yes.
All right. We stand adjourned. See you all in November.